I'm going to share my screen. All right, here I am in top view. I want to make sure I go from brush wireframe into lit so I can see what I'm dealing with. Let's take a look at our design spec for a minute. And remember, it's 500 per on our grid that we want to work with here. And we know that we've got a 24 by 24. So if each one of these squares is 500, and I want 24 of them, then my distance for my total thing is 24 of these boxes, which is going to be 12,000 units. I know I had a problem in the earlier version of the instructions, but we're going to go for, that's a pretty big piece of geometry. And as a reminder, if you get into geometry and you grab a box, because we're doing prototyping, we can actually set our properties over here to 12,000 by 12,000. All right. That's just a reminder on, the math principles that we used when we did our base maze game. Now, the world I'm playing with right here is just a third-person sample. In fact, if I jump in here to play, that's the wall, and there's my floor. My floor is too high at this point. It's kind of poking through there. So let me look from the side and just lower this down by 500 units, and there'll be a little bit of a step off there. Now, if I play this level, it's behind wall number 1 right in front of me here. Well, here's the funny thing you can do. I'll jump back into perspective just to kind of make this easier for you to understand. The wall in front of me I don't want, so I'm just going to delete it. So, yep, technically my player starts not quite exactly where it should be. I can move it later. Now remember, you can make this full screen to do demos. And that's the size of the building over here. It's a pretty big building, actually, but it's supposed to be an industrial building. You're going to spawn over in this area here. The thing that's noteworthy is, pretend, if you will, that there is loading docks along there, and so you're actually just a little bit inset. That's one thing that was throwing people in the layout. Now, if I don't have a layout here, I can still cheat knowing the 500 by 500. Watch this. I'm going to go back into my content browser for a minute. Because I've got the starter content in here, I should. There it is. And I look at my architecture. Remember we got this wall that's 500 by 500? Well, the reason that I'm using the, the snap and everything of 500 by 500 is I want you to understand, look at that. That's still a little bit off. 500 is going to be too much of a snap. Let me change my snap to 100. So that when I go to line these things up, they'll be a little closer. Here we go. All right, now this is a 500, but that's only a part of the picture. So I'd have to go 500 and then another one over 500, and that would count for a wall. Well, we know about blueprints now, right? Right? Our own blueprint. What we're going to do is we're going to put 4 of these together and make ourselves a little cube that we can use over and over again. Starter content. Brick. Let's just get a brick on there. That's fine. Yep, that brick content looks good. So what if I wanted to turn this object into a blueprint? If I right click here, I can actually edit this and turn this into a blueprint, or I can add my own, but that's just to show you we're going to use a brick for our material. So I'm going to add a blueprint. Based off an actor. I'm just going to give it a minute for it to pop up. It's going to ask me what name you want. I'm going to call this cube for prototype. Should have actually put this in my own folder. Let's take a look at it in the viewport. We want to add a static mesh component. We're going to grab the one from our starter content. It's in our architecture. It's our 500 by 500 wall. That's the mesh we're going to use. For the material, I'll do those again at the end. Now, I should still have my grid snap at 500, which you'll notice there is a grid snap here. Now, there's the object center. So before I move this, I am going to keep the snap at 100. I got to move it over 250 units, guys. So I'm going to go 50. I gotta go and a 1 and a 2 and a 3, 3, one too many. I think that's over 2.5. Let's look at my starting position here. 200. Well, I'm just going to cheat here. 250. Place. I'm going to add another static mesh component here. So I'm going to add a component. It's going to be another static mesh. But Mr. Judge, why don't you just use a cube and scale it to 500 by 500? That could be good, but what I'm thinking is you might want to make one of these that's hollow rather than a solid cube. So I'm going to go with the static mesh. Another wall. This position is going to be positive 250 here and a negative 250 here. So what I should have, if I scroll back, is I'm starting to get myself with, I want 1 over 500 from the other, half of the distance. Here's my scene root. Change this to top. There's my static meshes. There's my grid. Let's try to eyeball it with 100s here. 100, 200. I'm going to go halfway in between there. Now I got to set this over to 50 to make sure I really get it right. So I've almost got this done. I could leave this open and just rotate them if I want to, but I'm actually gonna, let's go back into perspective here. So this is going to be basically a cube I can use. Ooh, it does not look as nice and neat as I want it. So I'm going to have to change my snap here down to like 10. There we go. When you're in your blueprint editor, it might make sense, as I'm doing here, to set up, you know, this is going to make it so that I can just basically grab one thing here and work with it. Ooh, let's have one side wall be this brick. Let's make this side be that color. And let's have the other side over there use this side color. Now we've really built a usable blueprint shape. Now if you wanted to add a door or some other opening over here, you could. You can just go right in the starter content. Remember, we got a 500. There's our cube for prototyping we're working on right now. Hopefully my scene root is there. Let me compile this, make sure I got no error messages. Back into architecture, and do I have a, it's not going to quite work. I could build this so that I have a wall on one side, a door on the other, and I can scale it so it fits the 500 by 500. I could even put a door on one and a wall on the other. I'll play with this idea later. Let me just save this for a basic cube. It's got 3 different materials on 3 sides that I can use. All right. Now that I got one of these built and I go back into my starter content, I've got this cube. If I pull one out and then I set my snap to 500 and I do an alt drag on it, I can start to paint a wall out. Now, if I remember correctly, I need to leave a gap on the edges here. Remember how many units over. That's a standard wall. This is a cube wall that I built. It's a blueprint. So if I do an alt drag and I build another one, another one, another one, I can paint basically my wall right down across my space. So this will make the construction of this level much quicker. And if there's a need, I can have this space open as well. So I've got walls of different colors, slightly different variations that I can use to prototype using the static mesh. I think my build will go much faster. You like that idea? What do you guys think? Give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down on what you think of that idea.